So, welcome to another episode of the Talking Deaf podcast. I'm more than excited to that we can finally talk to check the generalist on Twitch, the Generalist podcast on YouTube, known for a game I was talking about thousands of times, which is called Path Out. But there are also very interesting other projects we're gonna talk about today, known as VFX artist. And I just learned that's also a lot of tutorial videos I think happening on YouTube. But I think I'll just jump directly to you. How would you introduce yourself?
Oh, that's a tough question because it's the hardest thing that it's a hard challenge to introduce myself because I do so much and I like to go into multidisciplinary stuff. So that's why I named myself Jack the Generalist because I just am a curious person and I'm interested in different sections of game development, game art. So yeah, I guess a short way to say it, I'm a curious person. My name is Jack, and I am 29-year-old. By the recording of this video, I'm originally from Syria, so I'm a Syrian refugee living in Europe, basically, and that's where the game Path Out comes in mind, as it's basically telling the story of my escape from the civil war, and that's how me and Johanna got to know each other.
Yes, this is like the one game I'm pretty much every single talk I'm giving, every single thing I'm writing about. This is like my go-to example of how this medium is used in a very beautiful way, let's put it that way. Before we talk about Path Out, I would like to go in an entirely different route and really talk about you, where you, like, whatever you want to tell us, but basically, where are you coming from? What is your first games you played? What is like tiny Czech, all the young Czech, tiny Czech experiences you want to share with us?
Yeah, definitely. So I was always a shy kid, but I didn't really know it. So from the beginning, I got raised in Syria. I got born in Syria, in a huge family. Like for example, my father had 14 brothers and sisters. My mother had 14 brothers and sisters, and they all had children and grandchildren. So I come from a huge family where we met every week. Every Friday we went to a different uncle to have like a huge feast, basically. So yeah, I come from that background. So when I was young, I literally thought that I'm this social person. I had really a lot of confidence because I had a lot of people backing me up when I ever had a problem or something. But then the war started. And when the war started, everything changed. All of a sudden, I'm not allowed to go to visit anymore. I'm not allowed to be on the streets anymore. I'm not allowed to, you know, have a social life, which was tough, especially in that time. I was young. I was like basically turning into a teenager in the beginning of all of this, and so games became a huge part of my life, which they were already, but now they became like the portal, basically, to get out of that reality, if you may. So my connection with games have always been, you know, special in the sense of it being, me believing it's a medium that can expand beyond profit, beyond just fun, but also to tell a message, to make someone feel like they're in a whole different reality, in a whole different world. Um, so yeah, I guess that is my upbringing, a little bit like basically quickly briefly said, yeah.
This is so I have to make a spoiler here because I had a little interview before with you already for a different thing, but you mentioned so many games, if I may add this, for you that were inspiring at this probably with this train of thought, right? Which I did not really expect. Do you want to go there? Do you want to share some of those?
Yeah, so there are a lot of games that have helped me, either develop empathy. I would say develop empathy, especially towards people or people of color that otherwise not playing those games could have ended up in me becoming, or looking to a certain people of color in a different way. Why? Because my upbringing, my parents, the culture, I would say the general culture in Syria, but like my parents had a certain view about people with a certain color, like black people, for example, which I only knew afterwards, like when I arrived to Europe, when I was like on the dating scene, right? And I was like telling my mom, "Hey, look, I'm talking to this girl, and she was black." And the first comment from my mom was like, "You're gonna ruin our race or whatever." So that was a huge shock for me, and I was reflecting on myself, like, how did I not pick up that energy? Like, how did I not pick up that thing from my mom, right? And the first thing came in my mind, I was like, oh, I played GTA San Andreas. Like, I was basically playing a black character, and even though San Andreas plays a lot on stereotypes, I like the boldness of it. They did not make black people like in an alien skin with like different flags, or no, they just made them, as they are in reality, like humans. And even though it's stereotypical, the story that they're telling, but the fact that they portrayed a black story with black characters made me not develop this way of thinking about black people that I could have just carried on from my mom, for example. And yeah, that is where I think games enhance empathy in a way, and I learned that very early on.
This is interesting. Do you think there are specific games which do this really well, or are there certain games which do it really poorly?
I think most of games do it poorly, honestly, especially with Arabs. Like growing up in Arab, a lot of games do this where Arabs are the bad guys, the bearded, bad guys that don't, that deserve to be killed, and you should not feel any mercy or whatever. Killing them, it should be actually fun to do that. So I think more games did damage than actually portrayed like people of color or queer people or women in a better lens, or in an actual human lens. But I guess for the lack of examples, I would go with GTA San Andreas because I don't really have many examples that on from the top of my head. But I do feel like we did a good job with Path Out, honestly.
Mm. Do you already feel like going to the direction of Pathot? But maybe like maybe first of all, like I would be really interested how where did you get from being this gaming person to then getting into game development? What was the path there?
That was an interesting path because I don't know if you're all aware of the story, especially in 2015 when there was like this news that was everywhere of the kid who died trying where his parents tried to cross to Europe from Turkey, and that kid was dead in Bodrum, the Turkish city. That night, I almost died too. So we've had a failed attempt, and we almost died, me and my brother, coming to Europe. And in that day, after we survived, I remember looking up the sky, looking at the stars, and saying, Jack, if you ever arrive, if you ever make this in the future, you will follow your dreams. And since I was a kid, I would be asked in school, for example. Like, it's a common question in Syria to be asked as a kid, hey, what do you want to be in the future? What do you want to study in the future, or whatever? And it will always be like, the common answer, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer. And I just said, I want to make Need for Speed games. That's what I said. Like, I was like, I'm going to work in games. That's what I want to do. And I'll be laughed at, right? Which will come in full circle later on to a moment when, with Pathot something happened. We'll cover it later on. But yeah, that was the connection of turning from gaming to making games. Is basically I almost died, and I promised myself if I ever make it to Europe, where there's an equal chance like everyone else, which is not true, by the way, but there is a chance at least. Yeah, I would basically chase my dreams no matter what. It's a fair chance. It's not equal chance, it's a fair chance.
Hmm. You are always like, what I noticed, you're very active also in giving a voice to people who might be underrepresented, who don't have the strong voice. It sounds like this is also coming from your own experiences in that realm.
So the main reason for that is I honestly believe if there is no diversity in games, there will be soon no games anymore. Like, that's a deep belief I have, and I could back it up with my theories. But I do believe like ideas um, and success in games in general comes from diversity of opinions, diversity of background, and representation. That's what I honestly believe in, and I think we should advocate for. We should be like, if you have a platform, you should be the voice of the voiceless, basically. Be able to share the stories of people who their stories are not shared as much. And this can be anybody. This could be the juniors who don't get to talk about their experience as much, like junior artists, for example. They're the most underrepresented people in the whole industry because they're just there to shut their mouth and learn. That's the general premise. But that's sad because like even when I invite, especially like junior level women in the industry, they will always decline and tell me that they're not good enough. And I would always say that is not my criteria, but they would never accept again. That's it. They're not good enough. They're convinced that they're not good enough. And that is sad because I think everybody's perspective matter here. Like it doesn't matter how good you are in your skills. That is the problem we have in game development, is that we literally attach our identity to our skills. The problem is with that is once you get laid off, which I don't hope for anybody, you start losing yourself, you know? And I think we need to cover that.
Let me go back to your path, because I find it so interesting where you, like again, you seem extremely reflected, and yeah, I think it makes like to make someone think in a reflected way like this. I think there's a lot of things going on and that happened in the past. So tell us, let's jump into the story of Path Out. How did this start? What was what was your role there? How was this experience?
So Path Out is a fun story
Oh,
because
forgive me,
yeah,
but we need to
yeah,
quickly introduce Path Out, for
yeah,
everyone who does not know it,
of
and
course.
the link will be certainly in the notes. But maybe you introduce us quickly.
I think I cannot introduce Path Out without the people that worked on Path Out with me, right? And my involvement was, I would say, not as much as everyone else that was involved with the game. So basically, Path Out came about. It's let me introduce it first. Path Out is a game where you play an 18-year-old Syrian kid that escapes Syria, and you play all the potential possibilities to escape. You know, the civil war back in 2014, right? And it's a JRPG, so it's made in a cute style. It's very simple game: up, left, right, down. You get to discuss things with your uncle and things like that. It's very human based, so there's no political agendas or whatever. It's just telling the story, and that kid that you play is basically me. So every now and then in the game, whenever you achieve certain milestones, I'll be commenting in like a let's play style video, speaking to the player, where they could actually see that they are playing an actual person, right? Do you want me to go into the story of development? Okay, so the development started basically where I met. I was lucky enough to meet the people at Kalza Creations, Georg Hubmeier, and Brian Main. And so with Georg Hubmeier, especially, we were having a breakfast, as was the case where I was trying to network in Austria, where I wasn't allowed to work. So I had a lot of time on my mind, and that's actually how we met. I was at a play, and his wife was playing, and I just approached her because I was interested in acting and stuff like that, and she was like, "Nah, my boyfriend at the time, you know, he makes games," and I was like, "Cool, I need to connect with that guy," right? So I invited him for a breakfast, and while we were, you know, having Syrian breakfast, the idea came about as a joke. It's like, you know, what if we make a game about your story? And Chaos Creations was already making games that were similar in message. They were already exploring that forum of games beyond, you know, profit, you know, for cultural games, serious games, if you may. And that was a good fit. It was like the perfect fit for the perfect time. It was like the good person, the right person at the right time. Everything was fitting. And then Gyoko Maya basically went on and did all the work with like finding fundings and stuff like that, which made the actual game become more possible. Gutmann introduced me to Brian Main, which is still my mentor till this day. Brian Main is a American illustrator in Vienna, so I was able like to speak English to him all the time, and he was able to teach me and show me things. And eventually, the plan was, of course, that I get very involved in the art of the game and be hired and all of that. But my interview took time, and everything went against it. So life happened. So I was more involved in the co-design phase. So when we're brainstorming and designing how the game would be like, and I'll be involved in that and also in the story. So one of the major design elements that made it into the final game that I was part of is, of course, me as like the commentary in the game. And yeah, that was basically my involvement at the beginning, and then the production started. I was not part of that, but like early on with the conceptual phase, I was there. And then the game came out, and there was a lot of work after the game came out with representing the game, being there on events and PR, basically PR and marketing, trying to talk to publishers, trying to get publishers interested, because the game is basically still a demo. It still is a demo. But the cool thing is that since there was not so many games like it at that time that were talking about a refugee, like an actual real story, it was on the news everywhere. So it caught up this huge wave of like interest from the media. Yeah, briefly said, that's the story.
This is also like what I figured back then. It was immense how big it was covered in the news. Like for I think for it's such an important topic, and it was, I think, that's why like I really love it as an example, because first of all, it was a very smart game. The way game design choices were made, I think were really smart. I really love the concept. I have to, like you already mentioned this, but I have to underline this. I really love this concept that you have this cute pixel figure, basically representing you, and all of a sudden you pop up as a comment, commenting on what is actually happening and saying, yeah, I still have some quotes of you actually in the back of my head every time I think of this game, and this is really powerful, this media mix, because this is something, and again, the game for me, it works in so many ways. It is something which is relatively short. I'm a huge fan of shorter games. I think we do have not enough of those which tell a personal story, which can be then played in an evening or so. And I think like this game made it so accessible. So I think, and then being covered in the news, this was a no-brainer, because it told such an important story. It gave attention to the story, to the cause, but also to games as a medium to transport such a cause. That's why I really applauded the whole project, again from every perspective, telling the object of the cause, but also the way it was designed and representing games. So yeah, you see, I'm very excited about the game.
I mean, hearing that, because like that was the main idea that I think me and the team wanted to like reflect on, or like try to people think about, which is like games can be explored beyond profit. Games can be an art form to tell stories, to invoke empathy, or just show a human perspective. They can do that, in my opinion, better than any other medium, like arguably so, honestly. Because I hate the word shifting perspective or changing perspective. I think it's more of an expanding. It expands your perspective, because like you make those tiny realities that now everybody get to experience, and they could expand their knowledge the way they want. The cool thing about games is that they have the choice. You're not like, I feel like sometimes with movies or like things that we watch, if they're not done well, the actual topic gets dumped down a little bit. Like they're making you feel the way they want you to feel. And I don't think games do that a lot. I think games allow, even if they do that, where they invoke like an epic music or a sad music, the choice is still yours to feel the way you want to feel, you know?
I have the weirdest in-between question, but what is a Syrian breakfast?
Well, Syrian breakfast includes a lot of carbohydrates. What is it? We have a drink that is sugar with some tea. and a lot of olives and a lot of eggs and a lot of beans. That's a
Oh,
Syrian breakfast.
oh, that's
A
actually
lot of
nice.
jokes.
But this was
We have,
a very
yeah.
explicit like part of the story.
It's definitely an experience, but I can tell you because uh, I've experienced like Syrian breakfast, which could be as simple as literally as simple as olive oil with uh, I don't know what it's called in English. In German, it's called thymian.
Oh,
Thymes, I guess.
time, yes.
Literally, this is something we eat. So one of the things that I did early on as a refugee, where we only got like 300 euros a month, is to literally live. Uh, I would pay 2 euros a week to live, and I would just eat the Syrian breakfast for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, just to save money.
Wow,
Imagine.
wow. How I don't want to, yeah. So the main idea of this podcast is also to learn about you, as like basically this mix of, because I'm always so excited about getting to know the people behind games, and there is so much,
Mm.
because as you mentioned before, games are such an art form, and I don't care if it's AAA games or indie games, but of
Yeah.
course specifically indie games. But I think like every one of us creating something is putting something of ourselves in there, and yeah, I would love to like get a little bit started. Where do you like the easy question? Hey, Jack, where do you get your inspirations from?
Well, that's interesting. Where do I get my inspiration from? Most of my inspiration comes from my life. I think I've just discovered that honestly because I've read Fauzi Masmar's book about creativity, and I think he says something very smart there about that the most unique thing in the world is you yourself, basically you and your experience. That's the most unique thing in the universe to you and to other people too. So yeah, that basically is where I get most of my inspiration from. Just my life mostly, but also I do my best to get inspiration from other games and the way they make things.
And what are some games which you would have at the top of your head, which do this well or which did inspire you? Again, I think inspiration can go both ways. It can be
Mm.
also games which did inspire you how to not do things.
I mean, basically you said it. Like inspiring me, my inspiration came from the almost desperation from the fact that Arabs are so misrepresented and not presented as humans as much. So I didn't want to make a game where where I just want to, how to say, like, make Arabs seem as heroes or whatever. I just wanted to make a game where it just is saying Arabs are humans. You know, this kid had to escape the war, circumstances happen, uh, life happens. One second you will be playing your Xbox, watching your movies, and the next moment you have to flee. This is the story of why you see people on the boat on the news, right? Not just see people on the boat in the news and just listen to what Fox News or whoever thinks about them or how they labelize them. So instead of that, just having the fact that, all right, so what happened to that kid? Why is it all men? That's also a question that comes a lot when it comes to refugees. Like, why is it all men? Why is there not so many women? Well, if you're 18, you have to join the military, right? And if you don't, then you join the other factions if you want to. Both is blood. If you're not gonna die, someone else is gonna die. Are you willing to kill your own people? Yes or no? And it's just simple yes or no question. If no, then what is the outcome? Well, you flee. You risk your own life. And I was fine with risking my own life instead of risking someone else's life.
Wow. Well, thanks so much for sharing this. This is how was it for you? Because again, like we're back to this mixture of your inspiration, and it's always going back to path out
Mm.
somehow. Um, it's basically a part of your life, like an autobiography, basically in form
Mm.
of a video game, of a game. How does this feel? This like seeing yourself in this game.
Okay, so now that I look at it, because the game got released in 2016, I believe. So
Ten
when it
years ago,
just yeah,
I
like
grew
really old,
gray-haired instantly. Wow.
gray hair instantly. Yeah, so it's been a while. So I was 19 back then. Now I'm 29. So
Fuck.
yeah, a lot of things changed, and the way I view life changed. So back then for me it was like, okay, cool, I'm gonna, prove myself. That was my main thing back then. I want to prove myself. I want to get into this business. I want to show that games can be used in a different ways. Now I'm more like looking back at it, I'm like, okay, that was one way to deal with the trauma, basically. So but mostly to answer your question, like seeing other people playing the game live in front of me, which doesn't happen as much right now. It happened a lot in 2017 and 2018, where we got like invited to Gamescom, and I remember working 6 hours, 16 hours a day, almost like just standing next to the booth, seeing different people working there, coming and playing the game in front of me. So I've seen like almost 500 people playing the game, and the reactions really varied. Like I've had like your typical gamer with like the SWAT cosplay or whatever that would come by and be like, "Oh, he's Syrian," but would still play it. You know, they would see the title and the picture and the style. They'd be like, "Oh, this looks like Pokemon. I would like to try this game." And then all of a sudden, you're in the minefield, and there's this Syrian guy talking to you. And I bet like that person never thought they would ever have a conversation with a Syrian before, right? Like they were maybe isolating themselves from this whole situation. But now it's in your face, and that guy is next to you, right? So like I would see that guy, but by the end of him playing, he'd be like, "Oh, thank you for doing this, because I have had no idea about this, and all what I know about this is opinions on the news and what my grandmother says and what my father says. But now I have a way to talk to them about this. And I bet he was getting fed all this misinformation and all this media stuff that was labelizing us as the evil people that are gonna destroy Europe or whatever. But now he played the game, and he could at least bring it up on a dinner. Like
Mm.
even if he can't argue, he can at least like just say, you know what, I played this game, and this was this and this was that, and this is why these people go out of Syria. It's not a game.
This is you're already mentioning this. There are educational aspects, educational experiences with that. And what I find quite curious, I was giving also this game as an example again when I would give talk in front of educators, and sometimes they would ask rather critical questions if this is a good experience for young people to have.
Yeah,
This is something which I got quite often. Any
yeah.
thoughts on that?
So that's, I think, one of the main reasons why the game looks the way it looks, is to appeal to any age from 8 till 80. Does not really matter. Um, and so I would say if it's for young people, absolutely it's for young people. What you're playing is just an experience of a human being. It's one story of billions of stories. So why would it not be something for kids? I guess that's my the way to answer that question. Like, why would it not be? And if the answer is like it's too brutal, and it's like, then my whole life should be censored, right? I should not exist then, or this whole thing should not have happened. But it did. So now we're here, you know? Um, that's the thing. Like, if the whole world was silent since we've been massacred, like in my hometown in the 80s, all the way through until the Civil War stopped, basically, then why do we not get to hear at least one person's story, and not with it just being neutral, without any political stance, right? Just the human behind, basically. And it is like the graphics are not there. I don't believe there's any blood either. Like it's just metaphorical. Almost all of the game is metaphorical.
There's also the classroom version now with it, and some teaching material, I think, to talk through the experience. This is I think something which is super interesting also to then take something, whether it's a book, whether it's a movie, or a game like this, and
Yeah.
then talk through it.
Yeah, the cool thing about the school version is you don't need to install anything. It's literally a browser version. We worked with the UNHCR. Causa Creations worked with the UNHCR to make that happen. So that's a cool thing where the UNHCR can actually use that project to go to classrooms or to tell teachers about that an actual project like that existed. I kid you not, I was once in Vienna and there were like kids going by and they were like, Isn't this guy the one from the game?" I was like, I felt so weird about it.
Oh.
I
Do
was like,
you,
"Oh wow."
do you like? I'm always like a little bit torn when it comes to educational games. What is your take on that? Do you have any thoughts on when it can be from a game design perspective working well? Because sometimes educational games do not have the best reputation among children, for instance. But
Mm.
this obviously works really well. So, what do you think? Why does this work well?
So I think the reason why it works because of the interactivity aspect of it. What is my opinion on educational games? I basically here's my thought. If kids are playing games anyway, regardless if there's educational games or no educational games. My question now to everybody in this world: would you rather to live in a world where there's educational games that your kids can use also in school, or no educational games whatsoever? So all the games they get to play are purely commercial, purely, what we see Fortnite or whatever. And the answer for that, for me at least, is like I would rather have schools like invest in and get out of their like bubbles since the 1700s of like, let's put a bunch of kids in a room, put those chairs with a table, and make them look at one wall where we can type on. Like, is that really reflecting the actual world where those people are gonna work in, where there's devices and AI and other tools that are, their hiring managers are, or their bosses are expecting them to know fully? I don't see that utilized unless like you go specialize in a certain section of the education, especially in Austria right now. Is, you get access to a computer in a classroom maybe if you are working in that direction, like computer science, or before that like as a lehre, maybe as like an apprenticeship when it's involved with IT. But I don't see it as much in other schools. And the question is, do you want to evolve or do you want to like just stay? I guess I don't know. That's how I see it.
As a game developer, what are your workflows? So we're going now really basic. What do you do? What are your workflows? What do you use? What tools do you use? So super basic question. So we are.
Mostly, if I really enjoyed a game, I try to break it down to its base functions. And one challenge I like to do, and also, that, of course, like not every day you get to work on a project, right? So maybe in 2 years I get to work on one project. So one of the things that I like to do is if I'm playing a game, try to break it down on paper. All right, like what is working with this game? Why am I enjoying this game? And I try to break it down that way. And I try then to challenge myself and see, for example, if I'm enjoying a racing game, how would that same concept work on a tower defense game, and see how I could do that. And it's just on paper, right? Like I don't need to really know the to be perfect in code. So sometimes I make like a prototype on paper and see if it's fun or not, right? And just for me, it's just for nothing commercial, just for me, just to know. And most of the times I get the best knowledge from two resources. One is actually working with other people who are knowledgeable and experienced. Two, from books, basically.
What books? Already, like this is already one of the questions I have. And
There's this book. I can give you the general premise of it. I forgot exactly what, but I think it's a popular book, The Lens of Game Development, of something like this, where it shows you the games through different lenses.
Is it The Art of Game Design by
The Art
Jesse
of Game
Sherrill?
Design.
And there he
Yes.
talks about the A Book of Lenses. Yeah,
Yes.
by Jesse Sherrill.
And
Yeah.
I think that book just summed up the, like, especially in the beginning where they say like, don't say you're not a game designer. First rule of being a game designer is say that you're a game designer. I'm
Yes.
a game designer. I'm a game designer. I love that. I love that so much.
And one other thing, how do you become a game designer? Make games. This
Make
is also a
games.
very good one. No, very, very lovely. Any other books on your list? I'm always like very curious about books. It can be also general books, which you really liked or inspired you. But we take every
Yeah.
single book recommendation in this podcast like crazy.
Yeah. I understand that. Mostly, I think because I come from a whole different background. Uh, so here's what I realized coming to Europe. When I come and I got raised in Syria, it's a whole different way of raising. It's a whole different way of life. So when you come here and you realize, okay, whoa, these people are ahead of me, maybe 20 steps ahead of me, in the sense of like proper education. Maybe they got brought up in a really good way. You know, they had really great parents, or they had the financial possibilities to, you know, navigate the world in a way better than me. Um, I saw this immediately. And I was like, okay, I'm missing out on a lot of stuff. And till this day, I see that happening. So I be educating myself on uh, simple things such as like attachment, right? Like there's there's a book called Attached from Amir, which is an Arabic name, but I don't know where he comes from. It's called Attached, and it explains the attachment theory in psychology. So there's, you know, the anxious attachment. There is the secure attachment, and there's the avoidant attachment. And sadly enough, that's what my therapist said. She's an Arab, and she treats a lot of Arabs in Austria. She said a lot of Arabs are avoidant. They have avoidant attachment. I was like, oh, that's interesting. I'm gonna read about it. So yeah, that book really enlightened me a lot about a lot of like sectors in my life, especially in terms of learning, in terms of improving, in terms of relationships, a lot of sectors of my life. So I guess my answer to you is the books recommendations that I would give are for everyone, but also especially like if you have that feeling that you live in a Western society, maybe, or like a more, I don't know what to call it, where you might have that feeling of like, okay, these people are ahead of me. They have way more possibilities. I have to start from zero. What do I need to learn? And first thing is that you need to learn how behavior works, behavior generally, because there are habits that you pick up from just like growing up with like your parents or whatever, and you could change those habits, you could change that behavior. So yeah, I hope that's helpful for anybody who's listening, like not just game development but generally attachment or like psychology. I think it's interesting.
Very
Why do we
nice.
do the things that we do?
Very nice. I go deeper there. What other things do you find interesting? Whether it's music or whether it's TV shows or films. Is there anything other which is you find inspiring, interesting, motivating, relaxing, whatever?
um for relaxing, I really enjoy spas. I enjoy hot water and just like quality time. I guess for all of this to happen is like to be inspired, to be relaxed, and all of that. You need to have good balance between your working life and your life. Generally, because if you don't have that balance, I do tend to just work all the time. And if I don't have that balance and someone check me, tell me, hey, slow down, which is my wife right now. She tells me like, okay, you've been working a lot. I can see myself even in my resting time working, and this could be problematic. And I think more than it's for me at least more interesting than music and more interesting like than anything is just to find quality resting time. And I think that is more doable if you can like structure your life in a way where you don't have to pay so much every month. Does that make sense?
I fully agree. Like, so the topic of mental health is something which is incredibly important, especially when you work in an environment which is, I would always call it like head focused. Very,
Mm.
like no matter what space you're working in, but I feel always like if I had a heavy day in terms of thinking and working maybe creatively, I love going to the mountains and doing something which is like a little bit the opposite. So this is it for me. And you already mentioned it, some sort of structure and so on and so forth. Um, in the past conversations, we often had the topics of how to actually motivate yourself to get started, how to get into this creative space, how do you procrastination was a quite a topic which was mentioned quite often.
Yeah.
And you already were like certainly going into the direction of, can I call them routines? Do you have
Mm.
things that you find helpful, that are helping you?
In terms of like
For
procrastination, or
instance, or general
yeah,
routines which are helping
yeah,
you.
yeah, I could talk a little bit about that because so let's start with procrastination, for example. I've being an avoidant person, like with attachment, you tend to procrastinate because your attachment is not only to people but also to things. Like I, for example, will say a lot that I want to learn things, right? But then I never initiate it because it's always like later, maybe later. That's avoidant. I'm avoiding the learning or starting to learn, right? So one way that I found to help me with that was to take a cold shower during the weekdays because I convinced myself if I can have something like a cold shower, if I can start that, I could start and stop anything I want. So that was just a way to fool myself of thinking, okay, so how can I go to an extreme that I can barely handle, especially in winter, by the way? Uh, if I could do that, I could start and stop anything I want. And that's how I start my day. But on the weekend, I take only warm showers. That's that.
This is such a great answer. I feel this so much. This is if you can tackle the cold shower, you can tackle everything, all the challenges in
Exactly.
your life.
It's
Love
a
that.
it's a mental challenge because I don't know if you ever tried cold showers. Have
So
you ever
so
done
so
that?
so what I do, and this is for me getting used to it. Like I go mountain running, right? Also
Oh yeah.
in autumn and so on and so forth. And then I always try to, if there's a possibility, to go directly after the run into a cold lake. So, and this is like going into a cold lake and just like trying to exist there for a minute. This is something which is so good. This is so weirdly awesome, but I cannot do
Yeah.
cold showers. Cold showers are the worst. In a
Yes. Yeah.
frozen lake, that's fine, but cold showers, no.
Honestly, I tried cold plunging, but no, yeah, it's so much easier than cold showers. You have it constantly annoying you with a cold shower. With a plunging, you kind of get used to it. After some, you become numb basically. I wanted to ask you about like dive, just jumping into a lake, because I've had that feeling. Do you also feel like merging with nature? Is that a feeling you feel?
Maybe that's a good thing. So it's like I would not jump into it. I would really slowly, but very like go straight in there.
Mm-hmm.
But like in a constant pace. But
Mm.
then you're really so for me, one of the things I always try, like what is important for me, my brain is constantly working the weirdest way. So there's
Yeah.
always like noise somewhere in there and everything which is like breaking this noise for a second or two. This is so nice, and this is certainly something where all of a sudden you're part of, maybe part of the nature like you
Yeah.
described it, but in a different space. That's nice.
Yeah, I mean that exact experience have helped me in like the worst time in my life where I was
Mm.
like super lonely. Um, Living in Salzburg, hashtag Salzburg lonely. It's very hard to make friends there, and just like going out and putting yourself in a lake you know, was so relaxing. I felt like nature was my friend, basically.
Do you? Is this something you share where you're based at the moment, or is this?
Oh yeah, no, I basically live nearby Vienna,
Okay.
and yeah, basically I could drop by Vienna and get out of there anytime I want. It's a really nice place.
Yeah. Yeah. So, um, no. I lost a little bit the.
No
Okay.
worries.
All right, right. So one of the big things which I noted, which you were talking about, I think which seemed to play a special role in your life, which I also like find super smart, are the roles of mentors. Can you tell us a little bit about mentorship, the importance of mentors in your life? And I suppose you are also a mentor now for many others. So how is that? Give us everything.
Wow, yeah, mentors are everything, honestly. Because I am that person, um, or people who are like me, especially coming from Syria, there you could easily lose it. You could easily lose your way, um, just because of like the lack of identity that it hits you when you arrive at a young age, and all of a sudden now everything is different. Even like someone offering you coffee is different. Like people don't know how much it is different. Like it is so different. Everything you've learned is void, right? Everything that you've known about yourself is void. So to have a mentor that I could talk to anytime about personal stuff, not just the art stuff, not just work, but also about personal stuff, has helped me. And that mentor for me has always been Brian Main, the American illustrator who lives in Vienna. Even when I lived in Salzburg, he would literally pay my ticket to come to Vienna, and he would allow me to stay in his place. Like when I didn't have parents or a brother, like the rest of my family, he was that, right? And I'm still like super close to him, and I'm very thankful for him for a lot of the stuff that he taught me. Not just in art, but also like personal stuff. So mentor role as a refugee is a crucial role, and I cannot imagine if it was like a mentor that would have like God forbid, taken advantage of me in any way or form. That would have been horrible because I was vulnerable. Back in the day, like I had no confidence, and I was like questioning. That's why I started with the identity stuff, right? Well, like I was 19, but there were things others were experiencing in their 13 here in Austria that I didn't experience until I was 24. Does that make sense? Like I lived my teenage years very later on in my life because you have to imagine in Syria when the war started, I was literally being raised by games. Like I stopped my life. My life was on hold. It was on pause. Nothing else mattered other than playing games. That is it. Going to school, playing games. That was it. And to get all the freedom in the world, that is stressful. It is super stressful, especially when you see other people succeeding, and then you start comparing yourself to them. But then eventually you're like, we don't have the same basis. We don't have the same foundation. Like one of the things that I was beating myself up for, and still till this day, but not as much as before, is I always promised myself to be an academic. I've never got that far. Why? Because when you come here, you're literally losing everything. You lost all your education, you lost all the papers, right? And in my case, it was so that I lost my actual certificate. Like I lost it. So there was no way back. It is what it is. I had to accept it. And I started an apprenticeship at a slaughterhouse. So I really started because I couldn't get a job. That's the thing. I could not get a job with my old name. I couldn't get a flat. I couldn't get a job. I couldn't get anything. No one wanted to hire me with my old name. Nothing was done with my old name, right? But eventually, a slaughterhouse was like, okay, we anyway need someone to work all the time for cheap. This is perfect, right? We're gonna hire this guy, and it was like an IT apprenticeship. I'm sorry, I'm going into other topics, so
No, no,
I'm
no,
gonna
no.
stop here
I'm
just to check.
like you have all ears.
All right, so yeah, I worked in that slaughterhouse for 3.5 years, and or 3 years, I think. That was where Path Out was. In the beginning, it got developed, and then it got out. And literally, I had those 3 years where I didn't get any vacation. My vacations went into going on events with Path Out. So I was working constantly all the time, and I hated my job. I hated my job so much, and I really didn't. That really prevented me from growing, like growing mentally, growing my skills, or socially even. All the people I was surrounded with had literally Nazi tattoos on them. So everything that I picked up from my German language, from my humor in German language, has been related to sexism, racism. So I literally don't use German as much because I hate the person that I became in that language. I don't want to. I kind of want to learn it from the beginning, which I'm doing right now, like by choice. Because before it was like you must talk German, you must learn German. So I created a really bad association with the language, especially when every time you talk and you might use the wrong article, people are have no mercy with you. They literally start talking in a very weird way to you, right? So this had really destroyed my passion to learn German for a while, and I stopped using it. I stopped using German altogether.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, no worries.
This
I
is,
was just surrounded by the wrong people at the moment. So having mentors, again to the point, um, is very important.
but I think it's very important to find the right circle who are empowering you and not putting you down.
That's tough with humans, unfortunately.
Is there any other because mentors in general, as you mentioned, like one specific person who helped you out a lot. For me, mentors are sometimes people who, personally, I do have some mentors who don't even know that. So people also who inspire me, and
Yeah,
my
yeah,
secret
yeah.
mentors, is there something? Are there any persons you find inspiring for your
Oh
work or
yeah,
for you?
oh yeah. And lately I got to work with as well. So I've always so when Pathog got released and we got invited to events, one of the very first event was Reversed. That was an event that used to be in Vienna every summer, I remember, or so, or I think every spring. Here where I first met Rami Ismail, who was on your show as well, and yeah, that person, I still remember we hang out for a night, and I can't forget that night, right? I from that moment on, that person, he's an Arab, he made it in the games industry. I'm like, okay, that is what I need to be, right? And yeah, from that moment on, Rami Ismail became like a huge inspiration for me. And from then on, when he made his podcast with Fawzi Mismara and Osama Dorias, those became also my mentors that I've never met, right? And lately, like since October, or basically, I got the pleasure to work with Rami, like together on the same team, October last year, and just finished the project like I think last month we finished, or the month before that. I don't remember exactly, bad with dates. And yeah, the game will be the trailer will release soon, and I'm very excited for that. That was an amazing experience.
But we cannot talk about it yet, right?
I mean, we could talk about how you know anything that is not related to a title, but yeah, basically that is it.
Whatever you want to share, share.
Yeah. I mean, just working with Rami, like he's such a good leader, like an actual leader, because like there are people who are called leaders in their titles, but they never lead. But that person like literally was able to make it clear to everybody what their position was, and was able to like hear everybody's opinions, and like still manage to find time for everybody and making everybody comfortable, even during times where it wasn't comfortable, but we just felt super comfortable working with him as a creative director. I was working as a VFX artist with him on a project. So that was like, I never worked as a VFX artist before, so they took a chance on me basically, and I was like super thankful for that, because now I could proceed the career of being like a VFX artist on games, which is something I always wanted to do. Um, yeah, just working with that person was amazing, and I wish to work with Fauzi one day, and Osama Dorias and everybody else.
And now I have to like be pushy here because I'm sure
It's so
you are a mentor for others as well. How do you deal with that? How is this for you?
I don't think I am honestly.
We
I don't think I'm on that stage yet.
we haven't talked about this yet, and we are slowly running out of time for part
Yeah.
one. And I think we need a second version of that anyway. But like we didn't talk about, for instance, your new projects where you're using YouTube and Twitch to talk about game development processes, to talk about to game developers and so on and so forth. You have
Yeah.
you have a lot of followers and subscribers there, so I take it as it is. You are inspiring people. You might be the obvious or hidden mentor of many out there. And yeah, no
I hope
pressure,
so.
no pressure.
I hope so. I hope so. Of course, I hope so. But it's this curse of like, I'm not, I'm learning. There's always better things to do, or like I can always improve on things. The whole idea of the whole thing, like with my YouTube, with my podcast, came right after a layoff that I had. It was tough times. I had a lot of anger and resentment and everything, and I was like, Jack, you need to channel this somewhere. I need to channel this somewhere. And one of the things that I never did since I came to Austria is to invest in myself, right? To just say, me. All right, it's my time now. I'm gonna do my thing. One of the things that I was obsessed with back then is the concept of learning and earning at the same time. So I started to start with this idea, let's learn. I was like, okay, let's do a let's learn closer to a let's play and try to sell those courses that I'm attending as an affiliate, but with also focusing on it being genuine. And I was able to make an income from that. And from there on, I started learning VFX, right? That was one of the main things that I started learning. And I think after 3 months or so, I got offered the job with Rami. And I was like, that is the best thing I've ever done in my life, to just like invest in myself and just like believe in myself.
Yeah.
Do something for me. Yeah.
This is perfect. This is really perfect ending sort of for part one of our conversation. No, I think we would need to have a second one, a little bit of a longer one. We scheduled for 1 hour for this time. I think that's fine. Is there any pressing thing you still want to add though?
We'll see you in part 2. That's definitely one thing that I want to do. We'll see you in part 2. We'll talk more. There's a lot of stuff that happened behind the scene. I'm looking forward. You're making a book. Can you say that, or is that a secret?
No, it's actually like you can it's you can already look at the title and so on and so forth in the bookstores. It's gonna be released in October, hopefully. Like fingers crossed. Let's see how this works. And you will be part of it. You are part of it. but we gotta cut this out of the channel because this is still super secret, of course.
Super secret.
But I have like 1 or 2 quick fire questions in the end.
Let's do it.
Yes. Favorite game of all time?
Red Dead Redemption 2.
Oh, yes. Game dev tool you couldn't live without?
It's a tough one. Blender.
Oh, an underrated game you wish more people knew about?
Underrated. It's a tough one. I don't play so many. Wait, Blur.
And
yeah, racing game.
Last game that made you really cry or laugh out loud?
The last thing.
Or any.
Okay, so I was watching a TV show and there's this actor who looked exactly like my brother.
Wow.
That made me cry and laugh so much.
Cool. Thanks so much for part 1 of our episode. We have to do a second one where we go a little bit deeper into some of the topics. But this was a very, very beautiful first getting to know you, to the Talking Dev community. Thanks so much.
All right, now I'm going to interview you.
Yes.
Are you ready?
Can we make a 2-minute break? And
yes,
then I'll get some fresh water and then we'll directly jump into part 2. Into the second. We have now part 2, but this is the second podcast, different one.
Yes.
Okay.
See you in a bit. Be right back, guys.